An 11-year-old boy crawled into a burning vehicle while 30 grown men stood helpless, watching. He had no shoes. He hadn't eaten in 3 days. He'd been living under a bridge because his father abandoned him with a $20 bill and a note that said, "I'm sorry." What happened next forced the FBI to drop a federal case, made a motorcycle gang weep in a courtroom, and turned the most invisible child in Arizona into a national headline. But the most disturbing part of this story isn't the fire, the explosion, or the 4 children screaming for help. It's what this boy whispered when they finally found him bleeding in an abandoned warehouse, and why those words changed everything. The police cruiser rolled past at exactly 3:47 a.m. Connor Blake pressed himself deeper into the shadows beneath the overpass, his breath trapped in his lungs like a caged bird. The headlights swept across the concrete pillars, painting yellow stripes on the graffiti that told stories of everyone who had hidden here before him. He counted to 60, then 60 more. Only when the engine sound faded completely did he allow himself to exhale. 11 years old, 22 months on the streets. And still, every time he saw those lights, his heart tried to break through his ribs. He could have asked for help. He knew that. He could have walked up to any police officer, any firefighter, any adult with a kind face, and said the words that would change everything. "I'm alone. I'm hungry. I'm scared." But Connor had learned what those words bought you. They bought you a system that processed children like products on an assembly line. They bought you foster homes where the checks mattered more than the kids. They bought you group facilities where boys went in with hope and came out with hollow eyes. They bought you a different kind of death. So Connor stayed invisible. He moved through Phoenix like smoke, like shadow, like a memory that no one bothered to recall. He slept in different places every night. He ate whatever he could find or earn. He survived. That was all he had left. Survival. The morning his mother died had started like any other. March 15th, 2011, the Riverside Shelter for Women and Children. Connor was 9 years old, and he had been staring at the clock on the wall, counting minutes until morning. His mother had promised to take him to the library. The library was free. The library was warm. The library had books about places far away from here. 2:17 a.m. The smoke alarm screamed. Connor remembered the hallway filling with black smoke so thick he couldn't see his own hands. He remembered his mother's fingers digging into his shoulders hard enough to leave bruises that lasted for weeks. He remembered her voice, the last words she ever spoke to him. "Run, baby, run, and don't look back." He ran. She didn't follow. The fire marshal said she didn't suffer. Connor knew that was a lie, but he let the adults believe he believed them. It was easier that way. His father appeared 3 days later. Daniel Blake, a man built for whiskey bottles and poker tables, not for raising a son alone. He tried, in his broken way. 8 months of motel rooms, each one cheaper than the last. 8 months of watching his father fight a monster that didn't negotiate or offer second chances. November 23rd, 2011. Room 17 of the Dusty Trail Motel. Connor woke to find the other bed empty. A $20 bill on the nightstand. A note that said, "I'm sorry. I can't do this anymore." Connor was 10 years old. He waited 3 days. Then he climbed out the bathroom window and disappeared. 22 months later, he had $19.37 in his pocket, a fortune by his standards. He had earned it helping the produce manager at a grocery store unload trucks before dawn. The man hadn't asked for ID. He had simply looked at Connor's too thin frame and handed him work gloves. $19 meant food for a week. Maybe new shoes from the thrift store if he found a pair that wasn't destroyed. For a homeless 11-year-old in Phoenix, Arizona, this was as close to hope as life ever got. Connor settled against the concrete pillar, watching the occasional car pass overhead. The August sun would rise in a few hours, bringing temperatures that could kill a man who didn't know how to find shade. But for now, the night was almost peaceful. He was nearly asleep when he heard the motorcycles. The sound started low, like distant thunder on a clear day. Then it grew, louder, deeper, a rumble that vibrated through the concrete and into his bones. Connor pressed himself against the pillar and watched. They appeared on the highway above him like a metal river. 30 motorcycles, maybe more, chrome glinting under the streetlights. Behind them, a white minivan struggled to keep pace. Connor caught a glimpse through the van's window, small faces, children. One of them, a little girl with blonde hair, pressed her hand against the glass. She waved. Connor's hand twitched. For a moment, just a moment, he almost waved back. Then he caught himself. Invisible people don't wave. He watched the convoy disappear into the distance, the thunder of their engines fading into silence. Just strangers passing through. Nothing to do with him. He didn't know that in less than 4 hours he would see that little girl again. He didn't know she would be hanging upside down in a burning vehicle, screaming for help. And he didn't know that his hand, the one that had almost waved back, would be the only thing standing between her and death. Above him, far to the north, a man named Gerald Hutchins was fighting to keep his eyes open. He was losing. Gerald Hutchins had been driving trucks for 23 years, 2 million miles, 0 accidents, a record that ended the moment his eyes closed at 73 miles per hour. The problem wasn't skill or equipment or weather. The problem was $67,000 in medical debt, his wife's liver cancer, insurance that covered most but not all, bills that piled up like snow in a Minnesota winter. So Gerald took extra routes. 1 haul became 2, 2 became 3. Sleep became a luxury he couldn't afford. August 16th, Los Angeles to Albuquerque, 34 hours without rest. August 17th, 2 p.m., 47 miles north of Phoenix, his eyelids began to droop. Just for a second, he told himself. Just rest them for 1 second. The 18-wheeler drifted left. 300 miles to the south, Raymond Thunder Crawford was leading his brothers toward catastrophe. He didn't know it yet. He was thinking about the letter from the U.S. Attorney's Office, the one that had arrived 6 weeks ago. RICO charges, conspiracy, racketeering. The kind of accusations that could put him and 7 of his senior brothers in federal prison for decades. The charges were built on lies, testimony from informants who would say anything to reduce their own sentences. But Raymond had learned long ago that truth meant nothing when the government wanted headlines. His lawyer, Patricia Mendez, had been blunt. The jury will walk in believing motorcycle clubs are criminal organizations. We need something to counter that narrative. Hence, today's ride. Every August, the Phoenix chapter organized a camping trip for children from the foster system. Riding for Tomorrow, they called it. This year, Patricia had arranged for a reporter from the Arizona Republic to document everything. Photographs of hardened bikers roasting marshmallows with orphans might plant seeds of doubt in potential jurors' minds. It was a desperate gamble. But desperate times demanded desperate measures. The 4 children waiting by the minivan were the only ones whose paperwork had cleared in time. Raymond walked over to introduce himself. Maria was 13, dark ponytail, arms crossed, eyes that had seen too much and trusted too little. Devin and Derek were 8-year-old twins. One couldn't stop talking, the other hadn't spoken since they arrived, and Lily was 6. Blonde hair, blue eyes, a stuffed rabbit clutched against her chest. Raymond knelt down to her level. "Hey there, sweetheart. What's your rabbit's name?" Lily studied him, the leather vest, the patches, the tattoos. Raymond waited. Children were better judges of character than adults. They hadn't learned to lie to themselves yet. "Mr. Buttons," she said finally. "He's scared of loud noises." "Well, you tell Mr. Buttons the motorcycles are friendly loud, like thunder. Thunder sounds scary, but it's really just the sky saying hello." Lily considered this with the gravity of a judge weighing evidence. Then she nodded. "Okay, I'll tell him." Raymond stood, his knees protesting. He looked at the 4 children, then at his 32 brothers, then at the open road stretching north. For a moment, he allowed himself to hope. Maybe this ride could change things. Maybe doing good would be enough to save them. He climbed onto his Harley and raised his fist. 32 engines roared in response. The column began to move. In his side mirror, Raymond watched the white minivan fall into formation behind them. Sarah Mitchell was driving, a 43-year-old nurse with a gentle manner and a lead foot. She knew the route. She knew the kids. What Raymond didn't see was the 18-wheeler 2 miles ahead, drifting across the center line. What he didn't see was Gerald Hutchins's eyes, closed for the last time before everything changed. The rumble strip screamed against the truck's tires. Gerald's eyes snapped open. Too late. The truck was already sideways, 80,000 pounds of steel and cargo sliding across both northbound lanes, like a wall being lowered from the sky. Sarah Mitchell had exactly 4 seconds to react. She saw the truck begin its deadly pirouette across the highway. Her brain processed the information in fragments: jackknife, blocking lanes, no escape, children in back. 4 seconds is not enough time to stop a minivan at 65 miles per hour. Sarah did the only thing she could. She yanked the wheel right, aiming for the shoulder, for the desert beyond, for anywhere that wasn't directly in the path of an 18-wheeler. The right tires caught gravel. At highway speed, gravel is ice. The van began to spin. In the back seat, Maria grabbed the twins and pulled them against her chest. Lily screamed for a mother who had abandoned her in a gas station bathroom 3 years ago. Mr. Buttons fell from her grip as the world turned upside down. The van hit the guardrail at 43 miles per hour. The impact flipped it onto its side. Momentum carried it forward, scraping along the barrier in a shower of sparks. Windows exploded inward. Then, the guardrail ended. The vehicle launched into the air, rotating, tumbling. It landed on its roof, slid 40 feet, and came to rest in the dirt beneath the overpass where Connor Blake had been sleeping. The silence lasted 3 heartbeats. Then, the screaming started. Raymond was riding point when he saw the truck jackknife. His reflexes took over before his brain caught up. He squeezed the brakes, dropped 2 gears, and brought his Harley to a stop on the shoulder while the 18-wheeler completed its slide. The truck missed him by less than 20 feet. Then he saw the minivan, saw it hit the guardrail, saw it flip, saw it disappear over the embankment. "No!" The word tore from his throat with a force that surprised him. Raymond was not a man who lost control, but those were his kids in that van. He gunned his engine and raced toward the point where the van had gone over. The scene at the bottom was worse than he had imagined. The minivan lay crumpled on its roof, compressed like a stepped-on aluminum can. Every window was shattered. Steam and smoke poured from beneath the hood. Sarah hung upside down in the driver's seat, unconscious, blood dripping from her forehead. But the children were alive. He could hear them screaming. Raymond sprinted toward the van. The first thing he noticed was the heat. The second was the smell. Gasoline. The fuel tank had ruptured. He could see liquid pooling beneath the vehicle, spreading across the sand. The fumes hit his nostrils and triggered every alarm in his body. Fuel plus heat plus time equals fire. Fire plus trapped children equals a nightmare he would carry forever. Raymond grabbed the driver's door handle and pulled. It didn't move. The frame had bent on impact, jamming every door shut. He and Dutch pulled together, 450 pounds of combined strength. Nothing. "The windows!" Raymond shouted. "Get them out through the windows!" But the windows were shattered and the roof had partially collapsed, creating a space barely 2 feet high. An adult couldn't fit. An adult couldn't reach the children. An adult couldn't undo the jammed seatbelts, and the smoke was getting thicker. Raymond saw the first flame appear beneath the hood. Small, orange, hungry. It wouldn't stay small for long. "Jaws of life," someone shouted. "Called 911, 20 minutes out." 20 minutes. Raymond looked at the growing flame, looked at the gasoline spreading across the sand, looked at the 4 children screaming inside. They didn't have 20 minutes. They had maybe 90 seconds. Raymond Crawford, president of the Phoenix Hells Angels, a man who had ridden through storms that could kill, who had faced down threats that would break most men, fell to his knees in the dirt. His hands, the hands that had fixed motorcycles for 30 years, began to shake. For the first time in his adult life, he was completely helpless. And then, from the shadows beneath the overpass, a boy appeared, barefoot, filthy, running straight toward the flames. Connor's feet moved before his brain gave permission. One moment he was pressed against the concrete pillar, watching the chaos unfold from the safety of shadows. The next moment he was running, sprinting across the dirt toward a burning vehicle surrounded by giants in leather. Every survival instinct screamed at him to stop. Bikers meant danger. Fire meant death. Being seen meant the system. But the screaming. God, the screaming. It wasn't adult screaming, not the angry shouts of men fighting or the desperate cries of someone being robbed. This was higher, purer, more terrified. This was children. And somewhere deep in Connor's chest, in a place that 22 months of survival hadn't managed to kill, something switched off. The calculating part of his brain that weighed risks and rewards simply stopped functioning. He saw the blonde hair through the shattered window. The little girl who had waved at him. She was hanging upside down, screaming, flames reflected in her terrified eyes. Connor ran faster. Raymond saw the boy appear from nowhere. One moment there was nothing but smoke and helplessness and the crushing weight of failure. The next moment there was a child sprinting toward the burning van with speed and purpose that seemed impossible for someone so small. The kid was filthy. Clothes torn and stained with weeks of street living, feet bare, the soles blackened from Arizona asphalt, frame so thin Raymond could count ribs through the holes in his shirt. But his eyes were absolutely focused. "Kid, stop, get back," Raymond shouted. The boy didn't slow down. He ran past Raymond, past Dutch, past the wall of bikers who stood helpless before the burning vehicle. He dropped to his knees beside the van and studied the shattered rear window with an intensity Raymond had never seen in a child. 3 seconds of assessment. Then he moved. Connor had exactly one advantage over every adult at that crash site. He was small. The rear window opening was roughly 18 inches high and 24 inches wide. An adult male couldn't fit. The collapsed roof made it impossible. But Connor was 11 years old and had been malnourished for most of those years. His shoulders were narrow, his hips were thin. He had spent 2 years squeezing into spaces that should have been too small. He could fit. The heat hit him first. The interior was an oven. August sun baking metal for hours, now amplified by the growing fire. Sweat erupted across his entire body. His lungs protested as they drew in air that felt too hot to breathe. He kept moving. Glass bit into his palms and knees. He ignored it. The pain was nothing compared to what waited if he stopped. The first child he reached was Lily. She hung upside down from her car seat, suspended by the 5-point harness. Blood matted her blonde hair from a cut on her scalp. Her blue eyes were wide with terror. In her arms, somehow still clutched tight, was Mr. Buttons. "Please," she whispered, "please help us." Connor didn't waste time with words. He reached up and found the release button. Jammed. The impact had warped the plastic housing. He pressed harder, putting his entire body weight behind his thumb. Nothing. The flames were closer now. He could feel them reaching for him through the gap between the front seats. Orange light flickered across Lily's face. Connor pressed harder. His thumb felt like it was going to break. Click. The harness released. Lily tumbled free, and Connor caught her before she hit the glass-covered ceiling. "Can you crawl?" he asked. She nodded, tears streaming up her forehead in the inverted world. "Go out the back window. People will catch you." Lily grabbed Mr. Buttons and began crawling toward the light. Connor turned to the twins. 40 seconds, 3 lives remaining. Outside, Raymond watched the boy's bare feet disappear into the burning vehicle. Every instinct told him to reach in and drag the kid back, but the opening was too small. His shoulders wouldn't fit. His hands couldn't reach. All he could do was wait. The first child emerged, the little blonde girl covered in glass and blood, clutching a stuffed rabbit. Raymond grabbed her and passed her to Dutch, who carried her away from the flames at a dead run. "Come on," Raymond whispered. "Come on, kid, get them out." The twins were tangled together, their seatbelts twisted during the crash into a knot that looked impossible to undo. One was conscious, eyes locked on Connor with desperate hope. The other wasn't moving. The fire was 10 feet away. Connor could see it through the gap, a wall of orange and red consuming the engine compartment, reaching toward the passenger cabin with hungry fingers. Smoke filled his lungs with each breath. His eyes watered. His throat burned. He found the first release mechanism, jammed like Lily's. But this one was worse. The metal housing had bent, the button depressed at an angle that prevented the latch from releasing. He needed a tool. His eyes scanned the destroyed interior. There, a piece of metal trim torn loose from the door panel, thin, 1/4 inch wide, with a pointed end where it had snapped. The metal was hot enough to burn his palm. He grabbed it anyway, wedged the point into the gap beside the seatbelt button, pushed, levered, click. The first twin tumbled free. "Go," Connor said. "Window, now." The conscious boy hesitated, looking at his brother. "I'll get him. Go." 20 seconds. 2 lives remaining. The second twin's seatbelt was worse than the first. The mechanism hadn't just bent, it had partially melted. Soft plastic fused in a way no tool could fix. The fire was 5 feet away. Connor did the only thing he could think of. He started chewing. The seatbelt material was tough, woven nylon designed to withstand thousands of pounds of force, but it was still fabric, threads that could be separated with enough pressure at a small enough point. Connor bit down and pulled, using his teeth like a saw. Fibers separated one at a time, while the fire crept closer and his lungs screamed for clean air. "Mom, I'm not running away this time." The thought came unbidden, clear as her voice on that last night. "I'm running toward." The strap gave way. The unconscious twin fell into Connor's arms, 60 pounds of dead weight. Connor struggled to hold him, to breathe, to see through the tears the smoke forced from his eyes. He began dragging the boy toward the window. 10 seconds, 1 life remaining. Maria was still trapped. The oldest girl hung from her seatbelt, blood covering her hands where she had tried to claw herself free. Her dark eyes met Connor's through the smoke. "Go!" she shouted. "Get him out! Leave me!" Connor hesitated. The fire was 3 feet away. The unconscious boy weighed 60 pounds. The window was 8 feet behind him. If he tried to save them both, he might save neither. "Go!" Maria screamed. "Don't let him die because of me!" Connor made a decision. He dragged the twin to the window, pushed him through into the waiting hands of the bikers outside. Then he turned around and crawled back into the fire. Outside, Raymond Crawford watched in disbelief. The boy had already performed miracles. He had freed 3 children in less than a minute. He had just pushed an unconscious child through the window to safety, and now he was going back. "Kid, no!" The boy either couldn't hear or chose not to listen. He disappeared into the smoke. 5 seconds, 1 life remaining. Connor could barely see. The smoke was so thick that Maria was just a shadow in the darkness, illuminated only by the hellish glow of approaching flames. His lungs were burning. Every instinct screamed at him to turn around. He kept crawling. "I told you to leave," Maria said. Her voice was hoarse, but there was no fear in it, only anger. "I told you to save the others." "I did." Connor grabbed her seatbelt. "Now I'm saving you." "There's no time." "Then stop talking and let me work." The mechanism was jammed but intact. The button wouldn't depress because the crash angle put continuous pressure on the latch. "Push yourself up," Connor said. "Take the weight off the belt." Maria grabbed the seat and pulled, lifting her body just enough to change the angle of force. Connor pressed the button. Click. Maria tumbled free. "Window, now." They crawled together, Maria in front, Connor behind. The heat was unbearable. Connor felt his skin beginning to blister, felt his hair singeing, felt the fire reaching for him with fingers made of pure destruction. 3 feet to the window, 2 feet, 1 foot. Maria dove through the opening. Connor followed. He was halfway out when the world exploded. The blast wave hit Connor like a giant's fist. One moment he was crawling toward safety. The next moment he was airborne, 15 feet through the air, his shirt catching fire, the breath driven from his lungs in a rush that left no room for screaming. Then he hit the ground. His head bounced off hard-packed Arizona dirt. Stars exploded across his vision. Somewhere far away, someone was screaming his name. But he didn't have a name. Not anymore. Not to anyone. Raymond was moving before the explosion finished blooming. 31 years of riding had given him reflexes that operated below conscious thought. His body reacted while his mind still processed the image of the boy flying through the air like a discarded rag doll. The kid's shirt was on fire, not fully engulfed, not yet, but flames licking up the back, spreading toward exposed skin. Raymond ripped off his leather vest, the vest he had worn for 23 years, the vest bearing patches earned with blood and loyalty and sacrifice. He didn't hesitate. He threw himself on top of the boy and smothered the flames with leather and body weight. Heat seared through his shirt, burns formed on his forearms. He pressed down harder, rolling the boy beneath him, suffocating the fire. The flames died. Raymond looked at the child in his arms, 70 pounds, maybe less. Bare feet bloody and blistered, hands covered in cuts from windows and burns from hot metal, back a mess of second-degree burns. But he was breathing. He was alive. And so were 4 children who should have been dead. Dutch appeared at Raymond's side, his face pale beneath road dust and sweat. "Ray," his voice cracked. "Ray, did that just happen? Did that kid just—" "Yeah." Raymond's voice was barely a whisper. "Yeah, he did." Behind them, the minivan was fully engulfed, a bonfire of twisted metal that had come within seconds of becoming a crematorium. The heat forced everyone back, created a perimeter of scorched earth around the wreckage. 30 feet away, the 4 children huddled together in the dirt. Maria had her arms wrapped around the twins and Lily, forming a protective barrier even though the danger had passed. Her eyes were fixed on the boy lying in Raymond's arms, the dirty, barefoot stranger who had crawled into hell to save her life. Sirens wailed in the distance. "We need to get him to a hospital," Dutch said. Raymond nodded, but he didn't move. Couldn't move. He was staring at the boy's face, the sharp cheekbones visible under dirt, the cracked lips, the dark circles under closed eyes. This child had been starving. This child had been alone. This child had seen the fire and run toward it anyway. "Who are you?" Raymond whispered. The boy's eyes fluttered open. For a moment there was no recognition in them, just Fear. Raw, primal fear, the kind Raymond had seen in the eyes of men facing death. Then the boy heard the sirens. His whole body went rigid. Before Raymond could react, the kid twisted out of his grip and scrambled to his feet. He swayed, nearly collapsed, caught himself on pure willpower. "Kid, wait!" The boy ran. Injured, burned, bleeding, he ran. Not toward the approaching ambulances, away from them, into the shadows beneath the overpass, into the desert beyond, into the darkness that had apparently been his home. Within seconds, he had vanished completely. Raymond stood frozen, staring at the empty space where the boy had been. "What the hell?" Dutch said. "Where did he go?" He ran. Raymond's voice was hollow. He saved 4 lives and then he ran. From us, from help, from everything. Why would he? Because he's scared. Raymond finally turned to face his brother. He's more scared of us than he was of that fire. He's more scared of what we represent than of burning alive. The ambulances arrived. Paramedics swarmed the scene. The 4 children were loaded onto stretchers. Sarah Mitchell was stabilized. Statements were taken. And Raymond couldn't stop staring at the shadows. "Ray," Dutch's hand landed on his shoulder. "We need to focus. The kids are safe. Sarah's going to make it. This is a miracle." "It's not finished." Raymond's jaw tightened. "That boy is out there somewhere, hurt and alone. He needs help. We don't even know his name." Then we find out. Raymond turned to face his brother fully. "Dutch, that kid did something today that grown men couldn't do. He crawled into a burning car without thinking, without hesitating, without any regard for himself. He saved 4 children who would be dead right now if he hadn't appeared." Raymond's voice hardened. "I'm not going to let him disappear. I'm not going to let him bleed out in some alley because we were too busy congratulating ourselves to look for him. The feds can wait. The lawyers can wait. Everything can wait." Raymond looked back at the darkness. "I'm going to find that boy. And when I do, I'm going to give him something he's probably never had." "What's that?" Raymond's answer was quiet, but absolute. "A family." Connor ran until his legs gave out. Then he walked. Then he crawled. The pain was everywhere. His back felt like someone had pressed a hot iron against his skin. His hands were sticky with blood. His feet screamed with every step as glass worked deeper into the flesh. But he kept moving. The sirens had triggered something deep in his survival brain, something that overrode pain and exhaustion. Sirens meant police. Police meant questions. Questions meant the system. He had seen how those bikers looked at him. Gratitude, wonder, something that might have been respect. But gratitude didn't stop adults from making phone calls. Wonder didn't prevent social workers from showing up. Respect meant nothing when you were an 11-year-old with no ID, no guardian, no proof you existed. Connor had been invisible for 22 months. He intended to stay that way. The abandoned warehouse was 3 miles from the crash site, a distribution center for a furniture company that went bankrupt in 2008. Empty space and broken windows, and the kind of silence Connor had learned to love. He collapsed onto his sleeping bag and stared at the ceiling. Rust stains spread across corrugated metal. Pigeons cooed in the rafters, and for the first time since his mother died, Connor allowed himself to cry. Not from pain, not from fear, from something he couldn't name. He had saved them. Those 4 children were alive because of him. The little girl with the rabbit, the twins, the angry one who had told him to leave her behind. They would grow up. They would have futures. They would never know his name. And that was okay. That was enough. Run, baby. Run and don't look back. His mother's voice, echoing across the years. But she hadn't meant forever, had she? She had meant survive. Make it through the fire. Find something worth stopping for. Connor closed his eyes. Maybe someday he would find it. But not today. Today, he just needed to survive one more night. Outside, the sun was setting over Phoenix, and 100 miles away, Raymond Crawford was making phone calls. The hunt was about to begin. The word went out at 7:43 that evening. Raymond stood in the parking lot of Phoenix General Hospital, phone pressed to his ear, voice carrying the authority of 3 decades leading men through impossible situations. Behind him, through the glass doors, he could see the 4 children being treated by doctors who kept shaking their heads in disbelief. They should be dead. Everyone who looked at the crash photos said the same thing. They weren't dead because of a boy who had vanished like smoke. I need every brother we have, Raymond said. Not just Phoenix, Tucson, Flagstaff, Yuma. Everyone within driving distance. Marcus Webb, president of the Tucson chapter, was silent for a moment. Ray, we heard about the crash. You're saying a kid did that? A homeless kid? I watched him do it. I watched him crawl into a burning vehicle and pull out 4 children one by one. Then I watched him disappear before I could thank him. How many men do you need? As many as you can spare. This isn't a hunt, Marcus. It's a rescue. That boy is injured. He needs medical attention, and he's terrified of authority. He's going to hide until he can't hide anymore. We'll be there by midnight. By 9 o'clock, word had spread across Arizona and into neighboring states. By midnight, Raymond had over 120 bikers assembled in the clubhouse parking lot. 120 men who had dropped everything to search for a child none of them had ever met. Dutch spread a map across the hood of a pickup truck. I've divided the city into sectors. Each team takes one. We check every overpass, every abandoned building, every place a street kid might hide. Raymond nodded. He won't go to a hospital. Kids like him don't trust institutions. Phoenix is a big city, Ray. Thousands of places to hide. Then we check thousands of places. The search began at 12:30 a.m. 120 motorcycles split into teams spreading across Phoenix like ripples from a stone. They checked underpasses and abandoned lots. They searched behind strip malls and inside empty warehouses. They talked to the homeless population, the night shift workers, the insomniacs who wandered dark streets. Have you seen a boy? 11 years old, skinny, barefoot, burns on his back. The answers were always the same. No, sorry. Haven't seen anyone like that. By dawn, they had covered 60% of the city. By noon, 80%. By evening, nothing. Raymond stood in the clubhouse parking lot, surrounded by exhausted men who had been searching for 18 hours straight. Some had fallen asleep on their bikes. Others leaned against walls, drinking coffee that had stopped having any effect. We're missing something, Raymond said. He's out there. He's hurt. He can't have gone far. Ray. Sal Mendez stepped forward, his voice tired and frustrated. Maybe we need to face facts. We've got the feds breathing down our necks. Half our brothers should be with their families right now, not chasing some ghost. And for what? A homeless kid who doesn't want to be found? The words hung in the air like poison. Raymond turned slowly to face Sal. That homeless kid saved 4 children. His voice was quiet, but it carried weight that made men step back. 4 children who would be dead right now. 4 children who will grow up and have families of their own, because a boy nobody wanted crawled into a fire that grown men couldn't face. Raymond stepped closer. You want to talk about what we should be doing? About protecting our families? That boy is family now. He became family the moment he risked his life for our people. And if we abandon him, if we give up because it's hard or inconvenient, then we don't deserve to call ourselves brothers. Sal looked away. I'm sorry, Ray. I didn't mean, I know what you meant. I know everyone's tired. I know we have problems that won't wait. Raymond looked around at the assembled men. But I also know who we are. We're the ones who show up. We're the ones who stay. We're the ones who fight for people who can't fight for themselves. He paused. That boy is out there dying alone because he thinks the world has nothing to offer him but pain. I'm going to prove him wrong. Anyone who wants to help, mount up. Anyone who doesn't, go home. No judgment. But I'm not stopping. Silence. Then, one by one, the men stood up. They got back on their bikes, and the search continued. Connor had not slept in 41 hours. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the fire, saw the children hanging upside down, saw the oldest girl's face when she told him to leave her behind. The burns on his back had blistered and broken. Fluid seeped through his ruined shirt. His hands had swollen to twice their normal size, the cuts inflamed and hot to the touch. He needed help. He knew he needed help. But help meant people, and people meant questions, and questions meant the system. He had spent the day listening to the distant rumble of motorcycles that seemed to be everywhere. At first he thought it was normal traffic, but as the hours passed and the rumbling continued, closer, then fading, a terrible suspicion formed. They were searching. For him. But why? Connor's fevered mind could only produce one answer. Punishment. He had interfered. He had touched their people without permission. Now they wanted to make sure he understood the consequences. It didn't matter that he had saved the children. Nothing ever mattered except power and control. He had to move. had to find somewhere else to hide. Connor forced himself to his feet. The warehouse spun around him. His vision narrowed to a tunnel, darkness creeping in from the edges. He grabbed the milk crate to steady himself and felt plastic crack under his grip. One step, then another. The gap in the fence seemed miles away. He made it halfway before his legs gave out. Connor collapsed onto the concrete floor, cheek pressed against the cold surface, eyes staring at nothing. The fever had taken hold completely. His body was shutting down. This is how I die. Alone, in an empty building, with nobody to know or care. He thought of his mother, her voice singing lullabies, her arms around him during thunderstorms, her hands pushing him toward the exit. Run, baby, run and don't look back. He had run, he had survived, and now it was ending. Connor closed his eyes. Somewhere outside, engines rumbled closer, then stopped. Footsteps on concrete, a flashlight beam cutting through darkness, a voice, rough, familiar, filled with something that sounded impossibly like hope. "Over here! I found him!" Connor tried to open his eyes, tried to run. His body wouldn't respond. Hands touched him, careful, gentle. Someone rolled him onto his back. Raymond Crawford's face appeared above him, illuminated by flashlight glow. "Hey," the biker's voice cracked. "Hey kid, can you hear me?" Connor stared up at him, the man who had watched him crawl into the fire, the man whose vest had smothered the flames on his back, the man who had spent 3 days searching for a boy nobody wanted. "Why?" Connor's voice was barely a whisper. "Why are you here?" Raymond's eyes glistened in the darkness. "Because heroes don't get left behind." Connor felt something break inside his chest, something that had been frozen for 2 years. He didn't have the strength to run anymore, didn't have the strength to fight, didn't have the strength for anything except one word. "Okay." His eyes closed. Raymond gathered him up like a father holds a son and refused to let go until the paramedics arrived. The hunt was over. But the real journey was just beginning. The hospital room was white and quiet, and nothing like anywhere Connor had slept in 2 years. He woke slowly, consciousness rising through layers of fog like a diver ascending from deep water. The first thing he noticed was the absence of pain, not gone entirely, but dulled, wrapped in something soft that kept the sharp edges from cutting. The second thing he noticed was the ceiling. Clean. No rust stains, no water damage, no pigeons, just white acoustic tiles with tiny holes arranged in perfect geometric patterns. Connor stared at those patterns for a long time. He was afraid to look anywhere else. "Hey." The voice came from his right, soft, careful, the voice of someone trying not to startle a wounded animal. Connor turned his head. Raymond Crawford sat in a chair beside the bed. Same leather vest, same weathered face, same eyes that had watched Connor crawl into the burning van. But something was different now. The hardness had softened into something else, something that looked almost like hope. "How are you feeling?" Raymond asked. Connor's throat was dry. He tried to speak and produced only a croak. Raymond immediately reached for a cup of water on the bedside table. He held it carefully, angling the straw toward Connor's lips. Every instinct screamed at Connor to refuse, to push the cup away, to find the exit. But he was so thirsty. He drank. The water was cold and clean and tasted like nothing Connor had experienced in 22 months. He drank until the cup was empty. Raymond refilled it without being asked. "The doctors say you were severely dehydrated," Raymond said, setting the cup back. "Infected burns, cuts that needed stitches, malnutrition." He paused. "They say you've been on your own for a long time." Connor said nothing. His eyes moved to the door, calculating distance, evaluating obstacles, old habits. "Nobody's called social services," Raymond said quietly. "Nobody's filed any reports. As far as the hospital knows, you're my nephew visiting from out of state. I'm your legal guardian." Connor blinked. "You lied." "I did." "Why?" Raymond was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was heavy with something Connor couldn't identify. "Because I've seen what the system does to kids like you. The foster homes that collect checks and forget to buy food, the group facilities where children go in and never come out the same." Raymond met Connor's eyes. "You've survived on your own for almost 2 years. You've learned to be invisible. I wasn't going to take that from you." Connor didn't know what to say. Nobody had ever protected him before, not since his mother. "What do you want?" The question came out harder than Connor intended, sharpened by years of learning that nothing was free. People don't help for no reason. What do you want from me? Raymond didn't flinch. I want to offer you a choice. What choice? You can leave, right now if you want. I'll give you money, clothes, whatever you need. Nobody will stop you. Nobody will follow you. Raymond leaned forward. Or you can stay. You can let us help you. You can become part of something. Part of what? A family. The word hit Connor like a physical blow. Family. He had a family once. A mother who sang lullabies and held him during storms. A father who tried and failed and eventually disappeared. Family meant loss. Family meant pain. Family meant trusting someone and watching them leave. I don't have family, Connor said. You could. Why? Connor's voice cracked. Why would you want me? I'm nobody. I'm a homeless kid who happened to be under a bridge when your van crashed. Raymond stood up. He walked to the window and looked out at the parking lot below. When he spoke, his voice was rough. I had a brother, real brother, not club brother, Marcus, 3 years younger than me. Raymond's hands gripped the windowsill. When I was 17, I joined the Marines. Thought I could escape our father, our broken home, everything. I left Marcus behind. He turned to face Connor. He got into drugs, got into dealing, got into the kind of life that only ends one way. He overdosed in 2004, alone, in a motel room in Tucson. Raymond's eyes glistened. The same kind of motel room where your father left you. Connor felt his throat tighten. I spent years asking myself what would have happened if I'd stayed, if I'd protected him instead of running. Raymond walked back to the chair and sat down. I can't change what happened to Marcus, but I can make sure it doesn't happen to you. I'm not your brother. No, you're not. Raymond reached out and placed a hand on Connor's shoulder. You're something else. You're a kid who saw 4 children about to die and ran toward the fire instead of away from it. You're a kid who has every reason to hate the world, but still chose to save strangers. His grip tightened. That kind of courage doesn't come from nowhere. It comes from something inside you, something that refuses to go out no matter how hard life tries to extinguish it. Raymond's voice grew thick. I want to protect that. I want to give it room to grow. I want to prove to you that the world isn't just pain and abandonment. Connor stared at him. 22 months of survival instincts screamed at him to refuse, to disappear, to become invisible again. But there was another voice now. Quieter. His mother's voice. Run, baby. Run and don't look back. She had told him to run, but she hadn't meant forever. She had meant survive, make it through the fire, find something worth stopping for. I'm scared, Connor whispered. I know. What if you leave? What if you disappear like everyone else? Then I'll be the biggest disappointment of your life, and you'll have every right to hate me forever. Raymond didn't look away. But I'm not going to leave. I'm not going to disappear. I'm going to be here every single day until you believe me. Connor felt tears threatening. He fought them back. I don't know how to trust people anymore. Then don't trust me. Not yet. Trust takes time. Raymond squeezed his shoulder. Just stay. Give us a chance. Give yourself a chance. If it doesn't work, you can leave whenever you want. No locks, no chains, no system. Connor looked at the door, then at Raymond, then at his own hands, bandaged, healing, the hands that had pulled 4 children from a burning vehicle. He thought about Lily and Mr. Buttons, about the twins, about Maria, who had told him to leave her behind. He thought about his mother, pushing him toward the exit. He thought about running, and for the first time in 2 years, he thought about stopping. Okay, Connor said. Okay, what? Okay, I'll stay. The words felt strange in his mouth, foreign, terrifying. I'll try. Raymond's face transformed. Worry and tension melted away, replaced by something that looked like joy, pure, unguarded joy. Good, he said. That's good. He pulled Connor into a hug, careful of the healing burns, and for the first time in 2 years, Connor hugged back. 3 days later, Connor walked into the clubhouse. He had expected something dark and dangerous, a den of violence where men plotted crimes and settled grudges with fists. Movies had taught him that motorcycle clubs were criminal enterprises, dens of drugs and weapons and brutality. What he found was a building that looked like a cross between a bar and a community center. The main room had a pool table and a dartboard, and a long wooden bar where a woman with gray hair washed glasses. Photographs covered the walls, decades of images showing men on motorcycles, men at barbecues, men holding babies and standing beside Christmas trees. The men themselves were everywhere. They sat at tables playing cards. They stood in clusters talking about engines and weather. They wore leather and denim and bore tattoos that told stories Connor couldn't read. And every single one of them stopped what they were doing when he walked in. Raymond's hand rested on Connor's shoulder. "Brothers," Raymond said. "This is Connor. He's the one." The one. A man with a beard that reached his chest approached first. Enormous, easily 6.5 feet tall, arms like tree trunks, hands that could crush Connor's skull. The man knelt down to Connor's eye level. "Thank you," he said. His voice cracked. "My daughter was in that van, Maria. She told me what you did, how you came back for her when you could have left." Connor remembered Maria, dark ponytail, defiant eyes. "She would have done the same," Connor said quietly. "She was trying to free herself when I got there." The bearded man's eyes glistened. "That's my girl. That's my brave, stupid, wonderful girl." He pulled Connor into a hug that was surprisingly gentle. "You gave her back to me. I don't know how to repay that." "You don't have to repay anything." "Yeah." The man pulled back, hands still on Connor's shoulders. "I do. We all do." One by one, the members approached. They shook his hand. They thanked him. Some of them cried, which seemed impossible given how tough they looked. Others told stories about the children, about camping trips and birthday parties that would never have happened if Connor hadn't crawled through that window. Connor stood in the center of it all, overwhelmed. He had spent 2 years being invisible. Now he was the most visible person in the room. And somehow, impossibly, it didn't feel dangerous. It felt like belonging. That night, Maria appeared at his door. She stood in the hallway, arm still in a sling, dark hair pulled back in the same ponytail. Her eyes were different now, not defiant, but grateful. "I never thanked you," she said. "You don't have to." "I know, I want to." She stepped into the room without asking permission. "You saved my life. You saved the twins. You saved Lily. And you didn't have to." "Neither did you," Maria frowned. "What?" "In the van. You told me to leave you behind. You were going to die so the others could live." Connor shrugged. "Seems like we're the same kind of stupid." For a moment, Maria just stared at him. Then she laughed, bright and surprised and completely at odds with the tough exterior she showed the world. Connor found himself smiling in response, the expression feeling strange on a face that had forgotten how. "Yeah," Maria said. "I guess we are." She sat on the edge of his bed. "So what are you going to do? Raymond's offer. Are you going to stay?" Connor looked out the window at the motorcycles gleaming under streetlights. "I don't know. I'm scared." "Of what?" "Of trusting. Of believing. Of letting myself think this is real, and then having it taken away." His voice dropped to a whisper. "Everyone I've ever trusted has left." Maria was quiet for a long moment. "My biological parents sold me for drug money when I was 6, she said finally. "Literally traded me to a dealer because they owed him $200. I've been in the system for 7 years. Not a single person has chosen to keep me." Connor looked at her. "These people chose me," Maria continued, "not because they had to, because they wanted to, because they saw something worth fighting for." She met his eyes. "They see the same thing in you. The question is whether you're going to let them." Connor didn't respond. But that night, lying in a bed that was his if he wanted it, staring at a ceiling that was clean and white and nothing like anywhere he had slept in 2 years, he made a decision. He would stay. He would let himself trust again. He would become part of something larger than himself. The invisible boy was ready to be seen. The morning Connor said yes was the same morning the federal agents arrived. 3 black SUVs pulled into the clubhouse parking lot at 8:47 a.m., tires crunching on gravel with the kind of authority that announced trouble before anyone stepped out. Connor watched from his window as men in dark suits emerged, movements coordinated, faces carefully blank. He had seen that look before. People with power who intended to use it. Raymond was eating breakfast when the knock came. Connor had been working up courage to approach him, to speak the words rehearsed all night. "Yes, I want to stay. I want to be part of this family." The knock changed everything. Raymond walked to the door with calm deliberation. Dutch fell into step beside him. 4 brothers positioned themselves around the room in a pattern that looked casual but wasn't. The door opened. The man who entered was tall and thin, silver hair, eyes the color of granite. His suit cost more than Connor's mother had earned in a year. Raymond Crawford? Silk over steel. That's me. Special Agent Thomas Whitmore, Federal Bureau of Investigation. Credentials appeared briefly. We need to discuss the incident on Interstate 17. Connor's blood went cold. They were here because of him. We have questions about the minor who was involved, Whitmore continued. Witnesses report that a child entered the burning vehicle and extracted 4 other minors. His eyes scanned the room. We'd like to speak with him. Why? The Bureau is investigating potential trafficking networks in Arizona. Children on the streets are often victims. We want to ensure this particular child is safe. The words sounded reasonable. They were lies. Connor knew they were lies the same way he knew when rain was coming or when a stranger meant harm. Raymond seemed to reach the same conclusion. I don't know what you're talking about. There was no child, just my brothers and a terrible accident. That's not what witnesses say. Witnesses were in shock. Whitmore's smile tightened. Mr. Crawford, obstruction of a federal investigation carries serious penalties. If you're harboring a minor without legal guardianship, I'm not harboring anyone. Then you won't mind if we look around. It wasn't a question. Raymond held the agent's gaze. The tension was thick enough to taste. You got a warrant? Dutch asked. Whitmore's jaw tightened. We're requesting cooperation. Request denied. Come back with paper or don't come back at all. The standoff lasted 7 seconds. Then Whitmore nodded and turned toward the door. You're making a mistake, Mr. Crawford. We'll be back, and when we return, we'll have everything we need. He paused at the threshold. One more thing. The U.S. Attorney has been building a RICO case against your organization for months. Conspiracy, racketeering, the kind of charges that put men away for decades. Whitmore glanced back. It would be unfortunate if your unwillingness to cooperate influenced how aggressively those charges are pursued. The door closed. Silence. Raymond exhaled slowly. Dutch, get Patricia on the phone, now. Connor was already packing when Raymond knocked on his door. There wasn't much to pack. The clothes weren't really his. The room wasn't really his. Nothing was his except the $19 still in his pocket and the burns on his back. You heard, Raymond said from the doorway. I heard. And you're running. I'm leaving. There's a difference. Not from where I'm standing. You don't understand. Connor turned to face him, eyes bright. They're using me to destroy you. If I stay, your brothers go to prison. Everything you've built disappears. He shook his head. I won't let that happen. Raymond stepped inside and closed the door. Sit down. I need to. Sit. Down. Something in his voice brooked no argument. Connor sat. Raymond pulled up a chair close enough that their knees almost touched. Let me tell you something about that federal agent. He's been circling this club for 3 years. The RICO case was being built long before you crawled into that van. Whether you stay or go, they're going to do what they're going to do. But the difference is this. Raymond leaned forward. If you stay, you won't face whatever comes alone, and neither will we. They'll take me away. Put me in the system. Then we'll fight. Every brother will fight. Every lawyer we can hire. Every resource we have. Raymond gripped Connor's shoulder. You're one of us now. We don't abandon family. Connor felt tears break free. I'm not worth it. I'm not worth destroying everything you've built. You're worth more than you know, Raymond's voice cracked. You're worth more than buildings and bikes and legal battles. You're worth fighting for, Connor. You've always been worth fighting for. You just never had anyone willing to do it. Connor stared at him through blurred vision. Why do you care so much? You barely know me. Because I know exactly who you are. Raymond's eyes glistened. You're the kid who runs toward fire. You're the kid who saves strangers because it's the right thing to do. You're the kid who, after 2 years of hell, still has enough light inside him to risk everything for people he's never met. Raymond pulled him close. That's not a burden, Connor. That's a gift, and I'll be damned if I let the world extinguish it. Connor held on and made his choice. Okay, he said. I'll stay. I'll fight with you. That's my boy. The words hit Connor like lightning. My boy. Nobody had called him that since his mother died. Raymond pulled back, wiping his eyes. Now, let me tell you about Patricia's plan. Patricia Mendez arrived within the hour. Her briefcase bulged with documents. Her expression could cut glass. The situation is complicated, she said, spreading papers across the table. Whitmore isn't bluffing about RICO. The U.S. attorney has surveillance, financial records, informant testimony. Can we fight it? Raymond asked. We can fight anything. The question is winning. Patricia looked at Connor. The immediate problem is him. He's an undocumented minor. No birth certificate on file. No social security number. As far as Arizona knows, he doesn't exist. That's been protecting him. Until now. Now the feds know about him and they'll use every tool to get access, including threatening kidnapping charges if you don't cooperate. The room went silent. Kidnapping. Raymond's voice was dangerously quiet. He's a minor. You have no legal guardianship. Under federal law, keeping him here could be construed as unlawful imprisonment. Patricia held up a hand. It's a stretch, but Whitmore doesn't need to win. He just needs leverage. So what do we do? Patricia smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. We do something they're not expecting. We go on offense. The plan was elegant. Instead of hiding Connor, they would make him famous. The crash had already attracted media attention, 4 children rescued by a mysterious stranger. Patricia's strategy was to amplify the story until the federal government couldn't target Connor without creating a public relations disaster. We arrange interviews, newspaper, television, national outlets. Patricia's eyes glittered. By the time Whitmore returns, Connor Blake will be the most famous child in Arizona. Every attempt to take him will look like the government persecuting a hero. And the RICO charges? We tie them together. The heroic motorcycle club that took in a homeless child after he saved 4 of their own. The government trying to destroy a community organization. Patricia leaned forward. We make them the villains. We make ourselves the victims. We let public opinion do what the legal system can't. Raymond looked around the table. Vote. Every hand went up. The campaign began that evening. By morning, Connor Blake would be on the front page, and everything would change. The Arizona Republic ran the story on September 3rd. The headline stretched across the front page. Barefoot Hero. Homeless boy saves 4 children from burning wreck. Beneath it, a photograph Patricia had arranged with careful precision. Connor standing between Raymond and Maria, burns still visible on his arms, eyes looking directly into the camera. By noon, every major outlet in the state had picked it up. By evening, it had gone national. CNN ran a 3-minute segment during prime time. Fox News followed, emphasizing community organizations stepping up where government failed. MSNBC focused on systemic failures that left an 11-year-old homeless. The internet exploded. Hashtags emerged organically. A's Barefoot Hero, Connor Blake, Real Heroes. People who had never met him posted messages of support, shared the article, demanded to know how they could help. Within 72 hours, Connor Blake had become the most famous child in America, and the federal government had a problem. Special Agent Whitmore sat in his Phoenix office, staring at a television showing yet another anchor, praising the courage of a homeless boy and the motorcycle club that had taken him in. His coffee had gone cold hours ago. His strategy had crumbled. This is a disaster, said Assistant Director Catherine Reeves through the speakerphone. The Attorney General's office is getting calls from senators, Tom, asking why we're investigating a group that rescues orphans. The RICO case is solid. The RICO case is irrelevant if we can't prosecute it. Do you have any idea what happens if we arrest Raymond Crawford now? Every news station will run footage of that boy crawling into a burning vehicle. Every anchor will ask why we're persecuting heroes. Whitmore's jaw tightened. The case is suspended, indefinitely. Stand down. Find another target. This one's radioactive. The line went dead. Whitmore stared at the phone, then at the television, where Connor Blake's face filled the screen. An 11-year-old homeless boy had just defeated the Federal Bureau of Investigation by being brave. The adoption hearing was scheduled for October 15th. Patricia worked miracles with paperwork. Connor's birth certificate was located in Nevada, filed under a slightly different spelling. His mother's death certificate was retrieved. His father's abandonment was documented through motel records and police reports. Judge Helena Ramirez, a 53-year-old family court judge with a reputation for no-nonsense rulings, had agreed to expedite the case. The courtroom was packed. Brothers filled the gallery, leather vests creating a sea of patches. Reporters occupied back rows, cameras prohibited, but notebooks ready. Maria sat in the front row with the twins and Lily, the 4 children Connor had saved, united in support. Connor sat at a table beside Patricia. Raymond on his other side. Judge Ramirez entered. "Be seated." She reviewed papers before her. "We're here to consider the petition for legal guardianship filed by Raymond Marcus Crawford on behalf of Connor James Blake." She looked at Raymond. "Mr. Crawford, you understand guardianship carries significant responsibilities?" "Yes, Your Honor." "You'll be responsible for this child's education, health care, and welfare until majority?" "Yes, Your Honor." "This responsibility cannot be abandoned without court approval." "I understand, and I'd like to say something, if the court allows." The judge nodded. Raymond stood. "Your Honor, 2 months ago, I watched this boy crawl into a burning vehicle to save 4 children. He didn't know them. He didn't owe them anything. He had every reason to stay hidden." Raymond's voice filled the courtroom. "But he didn't stay hidden. He ran toward the fire. He risked everything for strangers." He looked down at Connor. "That's who Connor Blake is. Not because someone taught him, not because he expected reward, but because somewhere inside him there's a light that refuses to go out no matter how hard the world tries to extinguish it." Raymond turned back to the judge. "I've made mistakes in my life, done things I'm not proud of, but I've also built something. A family, a brotherhood, a community that looks out for people who can't look out for themselves." His voice cracked. "I want to give Connor that family. I want to spend the rest of my life being worthy of the trust he's placing in me." The courtroom was silent. Judge Ramirez looked at Connor. "Young man, do you have anything to say?" Connor stood on shaking legs. He had prepared a statement. Patricia had helped him write it. But looking at the judge, at Raymond, at the brothers who had searched for him and fought for him, the prepared words felt inadequate. "My mom used to tell me that family isn't about blood," Connor said. "It's about who shows up, who stays, who fights for you when you can't fight for yourself." His voice strengthened. "For 2 years, nobody showed up, nobody stayed, nobody fought." He looked at Raymond. "Then I met these people, and they showed up. They stayed. They fought. Not because they had to, because they chose to." Connor turned to the judge. "I choose them too. I choose this family. I choose to belong somewhere for the first time since my mom died." His voice broke on the last word. "Please, let me stay." Silence. 3 heartbeats. Judge Ramirez removed her glasses and wiped her eyes. "In 23 years on the bench," she said, "I've never heard more compelling testimony." She replaced her glasses, picked up her gavel. "The petition for legal guardianship is granted. Mr. Crawford, congratulations. You have a son." The gavel fell. The courtroom erupted. Brothers surged to their feet, cheers drowning out the bailiff. Maria threw her arms around Connor. The twins and Lily piled on. And Raymond, the president of the Phoenix Hells Angels, who had ridden through storms and faced down federal agents without flinching, gathered Connor into his arms and wept. "Welcome home, son," he whispered. Connor held on tight and whispered the word he hadn't spoken in 2 years. "Dad." Raymond's arms tightened. Neither of them let go for a very long time. 5 years later. Connor Blake stood in the parking lot of the Phoenix Fire Academy on a morning in June 2018, the Arizona sun already brutal at 8 o'clock. His dress uniform was crisp and uncomfortable and absolutely perfect. He was 16 years old, 6 feet tall, nothing like the barefoot skeleton who had crawled into a burning minivan 5 summers ago. And today, he was graduating. Not from the Fire Academy itself, that would come at 18 when he could officially enroll. Today was the Junior Firefighter Program completion, a 2-year course preparing young people for careers in emergency services. Connor had finished first in his class. The irony wasn't lost on him. A boy who had lost his mother to fire. A boy who had nearly died in fire himself. A boy who still woke sometimes in darkness, smelling smoke that wasn't there, feeling heat that existed only in memory. That boy had chosen to spend his life running toward flames. Raymond called it courage. Maria called it stubbornness. Connor called it simple. He never wanted another child to feel what he had felt, trapped, terrified, certain that no one was coming. He would be the one who came. He would be the one who showed up, always. The parking lot was filling with vehicles. Family members arriving for the ceremony, parents with cameras, siblings with balloons. The normal chaos of celebration that Connor had once believed would never be part of his life. Then he heard it. The rumble. low at first like distant thunder, then louder. A sound that vibrated in his chest and brought tears to his eyes before he saw the source. Motorcycles. They appeared at the end of the street like a metal river, chrome glinting in morning sun, engines roaring in perfect synchronization, one after another, more than Connor could count. The Phoenix chapter came first. Raymond at the head, gray beard longer now, eyes carrying wisdom from 5 more years of leadership. Dutch rode beside him. Behind them came every brother Connor had grown to love, Sal and Martinez and Big Pete and dozens more. But they weren't alone. Tucson had sent 30 riders, Flagstaff sent 25, Yuma, Prescott, Kingman, chapters from across Arizona, and beyond, New Mexico, Nevada, California, Colorado. 167 motorcycles, 167 brothers, all of them here for him. Connor's vision blurred. Raymond dismounted and walked toward him, boots crunching on gravel, face split by a grin that took years off his weathered features. "Thought you might want some family at your graduation," Raymond said. Connor tried to respond. The words wouldn't come. Raymond pulled him into a hug, the same way he had 5 years ago in a dusty warehouse, the same way he had 1,000 times since. Father and son, not by blood, but by choice. "I'm proud of you," Raymond whispered. "So damn proud." Connor held on tight. "Thanks, Dad." The word still felt like a miracle every time he said it. The ceremony was held in the Academy's main auditorium. Connor sat with his fellow graduates, 23 young men and women who had spent 2 years learning skills that might one day save lives. They wore matching uniforms, carried matching certificates. But only one of them had 167 bikers occupying the entire back section, their leather vests creating a wall of patches that made the fire chief do a visible double take. The speeches were standard graduation fare, dreams and futures, hard work and dedication, the sacred responsibility of running toward danger while others flee. Then, the chief called Connor's name. Connor Blake, top of his class. Outstanding achievement in physical training, emergency medical response, and fire behavior analysis. The chief paused, looking at his notes. Connor also holds the distinction of being the only junior firefighter in our program's history to have already saved 4 lives before his first day of training. Laughter rippled through the auditorium. The Crawford Award for Exceptional Courage is presented annually to the graduate who best exemplifies sacrifice, bravery, and service. This year, for the first time ever, the selection was unanimous. The chief held up a plaque. "Connor Blake, please come forward." Connor walked to the stage on legs that felt like water. The chief shook his hand. The auditorium erupted. But it was the sound from the back that Connor heard most clearly. 167 voices raised in a cheer that shook the walls. He looked out at them. At Raymond, standing with tears streaming down his face. At Dutch, pumping his fist. At Maria, now 18, sitting in the front row with the twins and Lily. Connor leaned into the microphone. 5 years ago, I was invisible." The auditorium went silent. "I lived under bridges and in abandoned buildings. I ate from dumpsters. I had no family, no future, no hope." Connor's voice steadied. "Then I heard children screaming. And something happened that I still don't fully understand. I stopped being invisible. I stopped thinking about myself. I just moved." He paused. "But here's what I've learned since. What happened on that highway wasn't special because of what I did. It was special because of what happened after. A man named Raymond Crawford decided a homeless kid was worth searching for. 100 brothers decided I was worth protecting. A family chose me when no one else would." Connor held up the plaque. "This award has my name on it, but it belongs to everyone who showed up for me, everyone who stayed, everyone who fought." He looked directly at Raymond. "Thank you for teaching me that family isn't about blood. Thank you for proving that heroes don't always wear capes. Sometimes they wear leather vests. Thank you for giving me a reason to run toward the fire instead of away from it." His voice dropped to almost a whisper. "And thank you, Mom, wherever you are. I finally understand what you meant." Connor stepped back. The applause was deafening. But in his mind, he heard something else. His mother's voice. "Run, baby, run and don't look back." And finally, after 5 years, he understood. She hadn't meant run away. She had meant run forward, run toward life, run toward love, run toward the fire, because that's where people need you most. The celebration at the clubhouse that night was the largest in chapter history. Brothers from visiting chapters mingled with Phoenix members. A live band played in the parking lot. Children ran between motorcycles, supervised by prospects who took their babysitting duties surprisingly seriously. Maria found Connor on the roof, the same spot where they had talked 5 years ago, the night when everything seemed impossible. "Missing your party again?" she asked, sitting beside him. "Still not my party." "The award literally has your name on it," Connor smiled. "Okay, maybe a little bit my party." They sat in comfortable silence, watching stars. "I got accepted," Maria said. "Arizona State, full scholarship, social work program." "Maria, that's amazing. Turns out surviving the foster system is useful experience for a career in child welfare." She smiled, but something was bittersweet. "Feels weird. Leaving." Connor understood. "You know what Dad told me when I was scared to start the program?" "What?" "He said the whole point of having a family is to give you strength to leave them. Real love doesn't hold you back, it pushes you forward." Connor reached out and took her hand. "These people didn't save us so we could hide here forever. They saved us so we could go out and save others," Maria squeezed back. "When did you get so wise?" "Must be the company I keep," she laughed. Below them, Raymond appeared in the parking lot, looking up. He spotted them on the roof and raised his hand in a wave. Connor waved back. No hesitation this time. Invisible people don't wave. But Connor Blake wasn't invisible anymore. The program had started 6 months after Connor's adoption. Raymond called it Phoenix Rising, a partnership between the motorcycle club and the state foster care system designed to provide mentorship and support for children aging out with nowhere to go. The same children who became homeless at 18. The same children who filled underpasses and abandoned buildings. The same children Connor had been. It started small. 3 kids in the first year, 7 in the second, 12 in the third. By 2018, Phoenix Rising had helped 78 young people find housing, employment, and hope. The model spread. Tucson launched their version, then Flagstaff, then chapters in New Mexico and Nevada, then independent clubs who heard about the program and wanted to replicate it. Across the Southwest, motorcycle clubs once viewed with fear were becoming lifelines for forgotten children, all because one boy crawled into a burning van, all because one man refused to let that boy disappear, all because family was a choice, and they had chosen each other. Late that night, after the party wound down and the visiting brothers departed for their long rides home, Connor sat with Raymond on the clubhouse steps. The parking lot was quiet now, just a few bikes gleaming under streetlights, the smell of barbecue smoke still hanging in the air. 78 kids, Connor said. That's what the program has helped so far. 78, Raymond confirmed, and more every year. Because of what happened on that highway. Because of what you did on that highway. Raymond looked at him. The butterfly effect, they call it. One small action rippling outward, touching lives the original actor never knows about. Connor thought about that. About the children he would never meet. The lives changed by firefighters he would train, the ripples spreading long after he was gone. "I keep thinking about Mom," he said quietly, "about what she said that night. Run, baby, run, and don't look back." "What about it?" "I spent 2 years thinking she meant run away, hide, survive. But that's not what she meant at all." Connor looked up at the stars. "She meant run toward life, run toward people who need you, run toward the fire, because that's where you can make a difference." Raymond was quiet for a moment. "Your mother sounds like she was a remarkable woman." "She was." Connor's voice cracked. "I wish you could have met her." "I feel like I have." Raymond put his arm around Connor's shoulders. "Every time I look at you, I see her, the courage, the compassion, the stubborn refusal to let the world make you hard." Connor leaned into the embrace. "I hope she can see this, everything that's happened, everything we've built." "She can." Raymond's voice was thick. "I'm sure of it." They sat together in comfortable silence, father and son, watching the stars wheel slowly across the Arizona sky. And somewhere, Connor was certain his mother was watching too, smiling at what her sacrifice had become. Run, baby. He had run. Run and don't look back. He hadn't looked back, and he had found something worth more than survival. He had found home. The next morning, Connor put on his uniform and drove to the fire station for his first day as a volunteer assistant. The engine was already warming up when he arrived. A call had come in, Structure fire on the east side, possible occupants trapped inside. Connor climbed into the truck without hesitation. As they pulled out of the station, sirens wailing, he saw the building in the distance, smoke pouring from windows, flames visible on the second floor. The old Connor, the invisible boy who had learned that survival meant selfishness, would have calculated the risks, would have weighed the odds, would have found reasons to stay back. But that boy was gone. In his place was someone new, someone forged in fire and rebuilt by love, someone who understood that courage wasn't the absence of fear, it was the choice to act despite it. The truck stopped. The crew poured out. Connor grabbed his gear and ran toward the building, toward the flames, toward whoever needed him, and somewhere in his heart he heard his mother's voice one final time, not the command she had given that terrible night, something different, something that sounded like pride. "That's my boy," Connor smiled, and disappeared into the smoke. Epilogue 10 years later, 2028. The newspaper clipping was framed on the wall of Fire Station 7 in downtown Phoenix. Barefoot hero, homeless boy saves 4 children from burning wreck. The photograph showed an 11-year-old boy, dirty and thin, standing between a gray-bearded biker and a dark-haired girl. Below it, a newer article. Phoenix Rising program celebrates 200th graduate. Founder Connor Blake credits the family who chose me. And beside that, the most recent edition, Fire Captain Connor Blake, 26, receives Medal of Valor, 4th generation of children saved since Highway Miracle. The man in the photograph was different now, tall and strong, wearing a captain's uniform, surrounded by his crew. But his eyes were the same, still focused, still determined, still running toward the fire. At his side in the photo stood an older Raymond Crawford, gray beard now fully white, leather vest still bearing the patches he had earned across 50 years of Brotherhood. His arm was around Connor's shoulders, father and son, not by blood, by choice. Behind them, barely visible, a group of children in Phoenix Rising t-shirts smiled at the camera. The newest class of the program, 12 kids who had aged out of foster care with nowhere to go until a motorcycle club offered them something nobody else would. A family, a future, a chance. And written on the wall beside the newspaper clippings in Connor's own handwriting was a quote that every firefighter in Station 7 knew by heart. Family isn't about blood, it's about who shows up, who stays, who runs toward the fire when everyone else runs away. Connor Blake. Below it, added later in a shakier hand, Raymond's hand, were 4 more words. "That's my boy." The station alarm rang. Connor Blake, fire captain, set down his coffee and headed for the truck. Another fire, another chance to save someone, another opportunity to honor the mother who had pushed him toward the exit, and the father who had pulled him back from the edge, and the family who had proven that love wasn't something you were born into. It was something you chose. Every single day, Connor climbed into the truck. The engine roared to life, and once again, he ran toward the flames. The end.